Yo, what up? It's part 2 from the live that we did yesterday on attachment styles. Yesterday we discussed the avoidant attachment style. Today we're going to be getting into the anxious attachment style. So this is a part 2 continuation, signs that you actually have an anxious attachment style. And again, yesterday we did a very dope in-depth live on the avoidant attachment style. People that value independence over their relationships. People that fear intimacy, people that fear emotional closeness, that are typically emotionally detached in relationships, typically that ghost people, typically that don't like relying on help or support. That's the avoidant attachment style. Today is a completely different one, which is the anxious attachment style. Anxious attachment style are the ones that actually crave intimacy, that crave relationships, that are never really comfortable being single, are never really comfortable being by themselves. Anxious attachment styles is always needing to be in some type of relationship. But they also have a lot of fears when it comes to relationships, so they tend to self-sabotage. So we'll get into the first sign that you actually have an anxious attachment style, which is you are constantly trying to move towards intimacy. You are constantly craving or running towards intimacy, emotional closeness with people. You don't really like being by yourself. What if it isn't that deep? You just be ghosting people. Well, I mean, it's a reason why you ghost people. So, I mean, to you, you could say it's not that deep, but I would just say you lack awareness to what actually drives your particular behavior, because everything has a reason that's driving it. Humans don't do anything just to do it. We're always moving towards pleasure, or we're moving away from pain, and we're doing things simultaneously. So if you're ghosting people, it's something in your nervous system that I would be interested in your triggers that actually cause you to ghost people. What circumstances or scenarios or situations actually trigger you ghosting people? And I think that would be more of an indication. But again, it doesn't mean that all people who ghost people have an avoidant attachment style. It just means that people who have an avoidant attachment style will ghost people. So that's what these signs and symptoms will mean. It doesn't mean that if one of these signs resonate with you, it doesn't mean that you have an anxious attachment style. It's just basically saying that, we talked about this yesterday, we need clusters. So we need multiple signs working together for you to be able to be like, okay, I have an avoidant attachment style, or I have an anxious attachment style. Just one sign doesn't necessarily mean things. So just because you ghost by itself doesn't mean that you have an avoidant attachment style. But if you're ghosting because you don't like being emotionally close, if you're ghosting because you don't like acquiescence to the emotional needs of your partner, if you're ghosting because you fear getting hurt, or you're thinking that some BS is going to happen, then that's more so avoidant attachment. So anxious. The first sign that you have anxious attachment style is the fear of abandonment. So the fear of abandonment, and this kind of ties into the fear of rejection as well too, where you'll have this deep fear within you that you will be rejected, or that you will be abandoned, that people will leave you, and that you're not necessarily good enough. You're not likable in people's eyes. And this is why a person with an anxious attachment style tends to cling to dysfunctional relationships. An anxious attachment style tends to stay in situations that's not serving them. So a person could be really emotionally abusive, and not like that you're verbally or physically abusive, but just they're not really accommodating to your emotional needs. So if you like quality time, they don't want to give you quality time. If you like words of affirmation, they don't want to give you words of affirmation. Anxious attachment style tends to attract these type of people, because really anxious attachment style comes from a wounded place. And when you have the fear of abandonment and the fear of rejection, that will cause you to cling to certain situations, because you will feel like there's no really better options that's out there. It is a cognitive bias that we have, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's basically we will put more energy into protecting $5 that we have now than we'll put into gaining another $5. So this is why a lot of people stay in abusive relationships, because they're just like, it's less energy for me to just save this relationship that I have now than to go try to find somebody else, learn somebody else, make sure they like me. That's too much energy and all that. So I'm just going to stick with what I know and what I have now. And that's what the fear of abandonment does for people with anxious attachment style. Thank you, brother. That's what the fear of abandonment does for the anxious attachment style. It will make you just cling to certain situations because you will feel like that you're not necessarily good enough. You're not worthy enough. And a dysfunctional attachment style, especially the anxious attachment style, really stems from a place of low self-worth. A negative self-image and low self-worth. Not feeling like you're good enough, not feeling like you're worthy enough, not feeling like you're desirable enough. And that's why typically people who have an anxious attachment style, if you attract or are dating a person with a secure attachment style and you're anxious, the relationship is fine. Because an anxious person is really just going to need reassurance. Because they're going to be all up in their head all day about the relationship. If you don't answer the phone, they won't be able to focus or do anything until you let them know everything is cool. If the last time y'all had an interaction and you seem to be mad, they won't be able to be focused at all until they know everything is cool. That's how an anxious attachment style works. But that stems from not really feeling good about themselves. That stems from not really feeling like they're worthy or feeling valuable or not really feeling like they're deserving of good particular things. So the first sign is the fear of abandonment. And again, that stems from really not feeling worthy. So you feel like people will abandon you. You feel like people will reject you. And the fear of abandonment can really come from a lot of different things. You can get the fear of abandonment from your parents separating as a kid. You can get the fear of abandonment from your parents, one of your parents not necessarily even being there, period. Like, you can get the fear of abandonment from a parent passing away. And all of these things can cause you to feel like if you love a person, people will abandon you. If you love a person, it will equal pain. It will equal somebody leaving you, somebody rejecting you. And that can actually cause you to, unfortunately, cling to relationships. But the clinginess is really a self-sabotaging mechanism because you got the fear of abandonment. So you fear this person's going to abandon you. So you really kind of do something that causes this person to abandon you. It's self-fulfilling prophecies. So you cause a person to basically prove yourself right. This is why you got to address if you have an anxious attachment style, because it can really do damage on your relationships. Especially, I know this out about a topic, but how do I stop stealing from my partner? I don't know. You got to go with somebody else with that one. And have to save a whole new relationship. Ain't got time. That seemed like a second comment. Maybe I missed the first one. I'm not sure. So, yes, the fear of abandonment. So we just want to be mindful of that. The second sign that you actually have anxious attachment style is craving reassurance. If you constantly need reassurance, because that's the, to me, that's the easiest sign to know when a person has an anxious attachment style. Is one, if they always need to be in a relationship, but two, if they constantly need reassurance. They constantly need validation from the external, from outside. Because remember, they have low self-worth and negative self-esteem and a negative self-image. So they don't know how to validate themselves internally. So they need the validation from the outside. And that's a clear sign that a person has an anxious attachment style. They constantly need to know everything is okay. They constantly need to know that the relationship is fine. Now, the interesting thing is that once you give them that reassurance, for the most part, they're completely fine. They're able to go about their day, focus, but they can become very preoccupied when they don't get this reassurance. So like I was saying earlier, you and your partner, y'all might get into it and it's a little tension between y'all. And if you have an anxious attachment style, you will not be able to focus. You're going to be thinking all day about if the relationship is okay, if this person's still mad at you, if they still love you, if it's going to be. And that's what you will ruminate over and dwell over all day long until your partner gives you the reassurance that it's okay. Well, I'm over that. I love you. We good. You don't got to worry about that. So if you or your partner is constantly needing that reassurance, then that's a clear sign that you have an anxious attachment style. And really, the need for reassurance can come from a lot of different places. It can come from being deprived of it as a kid. Like I was talking to a client the other day, and he was saying how he has a lot of low self-worth and he struggles with validation or seeking validation from other people. And typically when a person struggles with seeking validation from other people, a lot of times it's when they grow up in a critical household. So your parents always pointed out your flaws. But with his case, that wasn't the case. They just didn't point out anything. They just didn't give no attention whatsoever. So that's what led to him actually needing reassurance. So that's just a way a lot of times people think that especially if you don't have a secure attachment style, which few people do. Majority of people have an anxious or an avoidant attachment style. But this is why a lot of conflict happens in relationships, because an anxious person rarely attracts another anxious person in a relationship. They typically attract an avoidant. Now, the issue with an avoidant, so an anxious needs reassurance. Again, they just need, baby, we okay. I love you. We good. It's all. But to an anxious person, that literally goes against their nature. That literally goes against their whole wiring. That is emotionally draining to a person with an anxious attachment style to constantly give reassurance. Because remember, a person with an anxious attachment style is completely reliant on themselves. They don't value connections or relationships. They are completely independent. So the idea of needing validation from an external source to an avoidant attachment style seems like almost less than or beneath than. So they really look down on it. They tend to have disdain for people that come across as needy. And that's what they'll look at you as. And an anxious attachment style will look at it as an avoidant, like you're just completely emotionally cruel. Like you're just cold, you're just distant. But in actuality, it's just your attachment style shows us how you are wired internally. And once you know a person's attachment style, once you know how they're wired, you know how to deal with them. An anxious person just needs reassurance. An avoidant needs space. But if you're an anxious attachment style and you're dating an avoidant, when they need space, to use space as an anxious person means the relationship is over. It means rejection. It means abandonment. It means something negative. But to an avoidant, it literally gives them time to lower their emotional threshold. But that's why a lot of times anxious and avoidance don't work out while they together, because they typically and unintentionally traumatize each other and destroy each other. Because again, though, anxious really just needs reassurance and they completely cool. But if they don't got the reassurance, they are preoccupied all day. So they can't focus around their kids. They can't focus around family, friends, work. They just are preoccupied. So avoidant can really disrupt the peace of an anxious person and just disrupt their mind all day. But an anxious person can do the exact same thing to an avoidant in different ways. Because when you're constantly needing an emotional connection with somebody that's avoiding emotional connections, that's actually draining to them. So while an anxious person gets filled up by connecting with people, an avoidant person actually gets drained with it, and they need to get filled up by being by themselves. So because we typically lack awareness of our attachment styles, we tend to go into relationships not knowing what our attachment style is, not definitely knowing what our partner's attachment style is, and then not knowing how to deal with each other accordingly. But the second clear sign that you actually have an anxious attachment style is you constantly need reassurance. You constantly need somebody to tell you that it is okay, that your partner cares for you, that your partner loves you, that your partner misses you, that your partner is thinking about you. You always need affirmation. You always need adoration. It's deterrence. Yes. You're always needing that. And to somebody that's around you, that can be extremely draining. Now, again, your nervous system is just taking that and wiring that up as like, oh, okay, I just need this to have peace. But to everybody else, it's actually taking the peace away. So you just want to be mindful. That's the second sign if you constantly need reassurance. The third one kind of goes into the preoccupation of it all, where you're constantly overthinking and anxious all the time, but as a result of the relationship. So your relationship, again, can just one little thing can be off, and next thing you know, you're just anxious all day, and you're just waiting on this person to respond. You're checking this person's social media. You're hoping this person to hit you up. You're in your head about all of these things because you can't be present. You can't focus in the moment because it's causing you to be anxious. And anxiety is really just a lot of worrying about the future. And so it causes you to constantly overthink. Well, did I say this wrong? Is this person going to love me? Is this person going to leave me? And this is why I said earlier at the start of this, you want to look for clusters. You want to look for how a lot of these signs come together. If you just got one or two of these signs, it doesn't mean you have an anxious attachment style. But when a lot of these things start coming together, that's how you actually know. So a lot of times the fear of abandonment and the fear of rejection causes you to always want to be reassured. A lot of times the fear of rejection and the fear of abandonment causes the overthinking, because you're going to be thinking that this person is going to leave you, that this person's, damn, did I make a mistake? Everything you do, if that person doesn't give you a, oh my God, this is so great, and they give you that reassurance, you're going to be in your head thinking, what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? And that will eventually, for one, cause a lot of stress on you, but then it's going to cause a lot of stress on your relationship, your partner, and everybody that's around you. I got a friend that always apologizes and always thinking they're doing something wrong. And I'll be having to tell them like, yo, I wasn't thinking any of that. So it's like you've been in your head about that all day. And I just been in my world just living, being productive, doing all this other. You got to get out of your head sometimes, because we're always making it up. So if we're always just making it up in our mind, then why not create something positive in our mind? Why not, you know what I'm saying, since we making it up, instead of making it up the worst case scenario and the worst possible outcome, why don't we make up good things? You know what I'm saying? Instead of thinking, oh, I did that and this person's never going to want to talk to me again, why don't you just in your mind imagine this person just wanting to constantly be around you and constantly like you? But when you got that fear of abandonment, when you got that low self-worth, all of these things, it makes it hard for you to actually have those particular thoughts. Because when you got low self-worth, your thoughts will match the image that you have of yourself. This is why affirmations don't work. A person could be like, I'm rich or I'm a millionaire. But if you really don't believe that in your spirit, the affirmation ain't really going to work. So that's the thing. A lot of times these people with anxious attachment style, they really believe that they are not good enough. They really believe people will reject them. They really believe that people will abandon them. And that's the issue. Be optimistic, positive mindset. Yes. Because you're creating in that aspect, in that context. Yes, you definitely want to be optimistic, because we're all distorting it. And that's actually the reason why God gave us that ability anyway, because every animal can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. But not every animal can use that ability to distort images and create images in their particular mind. The issue is we unconsciously use images that stress us out, that make us mad, that make us sad. That's what we do. That's what we do all day, is just think about stuff that piss us off, make us sad, make us frustrated, make us feel low about ourselves, make us feel insecure, make us, instead of using that to make us feel confident, make us feel, generate faith within the body, make us feel proud, make us feel whatever the positive emotion is. So I don't want to go on a tangent, but yes, getting out of that overthinking and being anxious all the time. But if you're constantly preoccupied because of things that's happening in the relationship, that could be a clear sign that you have an anxious attachment style, because it stops you from being present in the present moment, because you're always thinking about, man, maybe I said something wrong to that person. Maybe I did something wrong to them. Maybe they're not going to like me. You're always checking in on them. Hey, when I said that to you earlier, is that okay? Or did I make you mad when I did that earlier? And it eventually causes that self-fulfilling prophecy. It causes a person to eventually reject you. It causes a person to eventually want to abandon you. That's why you want to get to the root cause of it, because self-fulfilling prophecies are real. You will eventually, if you believe people will abandon you, if you believe people will reject you, you unconsciously put out the stimuli that causes that reaction of the thing you say you fear. So you got to be mindful of that. That's why in the Bible, in Proverbs, it says, everything that the evil fear will overtake them, and everything that the righteous desire will be granted. So everything that the evil fear will overtake them, being like, if you're walking by sight and not by faith, then everything that you fear, because your sight, whatever you focus on, creates feeling. So if you're focusing on something in your present reality that's generating the emotion of fear, that fear, it will happen. You will manifest it. But if you are focusing on faith and not by sight, so you're not focusing on what's actually going on around you, you are generating what you actually want to happen in your particular mind, then everything you desire will be granted. What it's basically saying is, it doesn't matter whether you really fear something or whether you really desire something, you will tend to manifest it. So if we're all making it up anyway, then we might as well choose to switch it to the positive. They say, being fearful is like having faith in negative gear, or faith in reverse, or we're having faith in negative outcomes, as opposed to, because when we're worrying, all we're doing is, again, having faith that a negative outcome will happen. And we really believe it in the body, as opposed to, and it hasn't even happened yet, as opposed to being able to generate a positive outcome in our mind, see a positive scenario in our mental movie that we create in our mind. That generates faith or excitement or some positive emotion, confidence. And then therefore we get a completely different result. So we just want to be mindful of the overthinking and the anxiety. But remember, it all stems from having low self-worth. And again, the low self-worth typically stems from, in childhood, emotional neglect, abandonment, some sort. Your parent passed away, your parents separated, your parent completely left you, was never around. So when kids are abandoned by their parents, a lot of times they have self-worth issues. They don't feel good about themselves. Or if they're with one parent and the other parent are constantly speaking negative about that particular parent, because that parent knows that, all right, I'm 50% you and I'm 50% that person, that means that all the negative stuff you're saying represents 50% of me. And subconsciously, these kids start to develop low self-worth. And then they start to develop anxious attachment styles. That's why an anxious attachment style, anytime they don't feel good about themselves, they typically go outside of themselves. They go outside of their home. They don't go home because their home didn't create a secure place. People who have secure attachment styles, they go home when they don't feel good. Because it takes a certain home to actually be able to create a secure attachment style within the child. Anxious attachment styles come when your parent is kind of like hot and cold, off and on. Sometimes when you needed love, affection, attention, whatever it is, they gave it to you. And then other times they were mean, distant, cruel, cold, abusive, withdrawn, whatever it is. So a lot of people with anxious attachment styles grow up being people pleasers because you don't really know what to do to feel good about you. You don't know what to do to get praise, because sometimes you'll do something and your parents will be yay, and other times it's just don't get no response, or again you'll get in trouble, close my goddamn door, whatever they'll say. So that creates an anxious attachment in a kid. That creates anxiety, worried about the future. I don't know how this person's going to respond. Let me walk on eggshells. Let me constantly be worried about what I say, what I do around this person. And that's how the anxious attachment style forms. All of our attachment styles, for the most part, forms when we're young. Now, we can shift attachment styles as we get older. So you can experience a major divorce. You've been married 20 years or something like that, and you were secure your whole life, and now all of a sudden you are avoidant or whatever it is. Things like that can happen. But for the most part, our attachment styles are actually formed when we are younger, based upon our caregivers and our relationship with them. Manifestation is a choice. Absolutely. Self-perception. You treat people how you perceive yourself. Exactly. I appreciate what y'all are doing at the Institute. How do I get info in individual sessions? I actually don't do individual sessions. I do bundles. But what you can do is click the link in my bio and schedule a free healing call. And you can get on the phone with me. We'll do a free 45-minute to an hour discussion. And then from there, you can either walk away with the free 45 minutes, or you can choose to sign up for bundle sessions. Because with me, I do holistic practice. So I don't want to just come with just one session and then you're back in, coaching or therapy or healing sessions 6 months from now, 2 months from now, whatever it is. We like to deal with the whole thing holistically so you be good going forward. The third sign that you have an anxious attachment style is clinginess and dependency. Clinginess and dependency. We are learned creatures. Facts. So if you're constantly clingy, if you don't like being alone and you're constantly clingy, always needing to be around this person, you feel like you need this person to actually feel good about yourself. When this person ain't around you, you can't feel good about yourself. You don't feel good about yourself. If this person don't want to be with you anymore, then you really don't feel good about yourself. You don't know what you're going to do. And that's why certain people be like, oh, I got a secure attachment style. No, a secure attachment style is truly comfortable if somebody wants to break up with them. They don't think it got anything to do with them. They don't think it's like they not bashing a person. They literally like, oh, okay, well, that person got something going on. That's perfectly fine. They not constantly chasing intimacy, and they not running from it. If intimacy comes, it comes. And if it wants to go, it goes. That's a true secure attachment style. Most people do not have that. Most people are avoiding intimacy or they're running towards it. Many people are not secure within themselves that can just really wait on their mate from heaven, or just be focused on their purpose and then find a wife. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. And to find means to stumble upon while you're on your path. So a lot of men, you got to get on your purpose, start fulfilling that. Then you'll actually find your helpmate that God created to actually assist you with that. I can be with no attachments. Self-love. Well, we all got attachments. It's just about a secure and healthy attachment. We don't want, because anxious and avoiding can just cause problems. And they cause different problems, but they can cause problems. Anxious, again, you're going to be clingy. You're not really going to feel yourself. You're not really going to like yourself. An avoidant person, typically, while they may have self-love issues, they have confidence. An anxious person typically don't have genuine confidence. An anxious person always just feels like, I need this person to make me feel good about myself. An avoidant person don't need another person to make them feel good about themselves, unfortunately. A narcissist does, but an avoidant doesn't. An avoidant values my independence. I'm going to do that myself. I'm not about to put anything into the hands of another person. But again, that's a trauma response. An avoidant person just had a whole bunch of pain trusting people in their past, whether it was relying on a parent, relying on caregivers, regardless of what it was. So much letdown, so much pain, so much. And now you just like, I ain't trusting nobody for it. I rely on myself. And that's really how the avoidant attachment style gets born. So much letdown. So clinginess and dependency. So if you're always needing to be around your partner, always needing to talk to your partner, always needing them to talk to you, when you find yourself getting frustrated or feeling all anxious and you get into your head and you ruminating over stuff just because they're unavailable or because they can't be around you or because they got to work or because they got to talk on the phone, that's a clear sign that you are struggling with clinginess. And again, if you got other signs that we talked about in regards to the anxious attachment, the clusters, that's a clear sign that you're struggling with anxious attachments. So the first three we went over, the fear of abandonment. If you always got this deep fear that people will abandon you or reject you, craving reassurance all the time. You always need somebody to tell you that it's okay, that they love you. If you're always overthinking and anxious about the relationship, a person don't answer the phone, you get all in your head and you like, oh my God, this person, like that's a clear sign. And then clinginess and dependency. Always needing to be around this person. They got to work and you mad or you just feeling some type of way or you just sad and you can't think all day because you just waiting to be around this particular person. You don't really have no self-identity of your own. You don't really have all the things that you used to do before you got with this person that made you feel like yourself or that brought you joy or happiness. You stop doing all those things. That's a clear sign. All right, I'm getting clingy and I'm a little probably dependent on this particular person. Next one is jealousy and possessiveness, because that fear of rejection and that fear of abandonment, once they do have something, can cause them to almost suffocate in a sense. And this can come out where you could see your partner just talking to somebody innocently and you will always project onto them that they were cheating or that they're planning on leaving you, because remember, the main thing is you got that fear of abandonment. You got that fear of rejection. So you're always thinking that somebody, you're not good enough. You're always thinking you're not valuable enough. You're always thinking that somebody's going to reject you. So as a result of that, you get very suspicious of your partner. Every time they doing something, you just like, yo, or you own something. So you don't want them to go out no more. You don't want them to hang out. You don't want them talking to certain people. They start pushing you away. Exactly. That's how the self-fulfilling prophecies come in. They got the fear of abandonment and then they start doing things that inevitably cause the person to abandon them. Because they're like, yo, you constantly saying I'm cheating. I promise I'm not cheating. You constantly say I don't care about you. And I promise I care. I'm just not telling you 30 times a day. I'm just not calling you 7 times a day. I'm just not. But are anxious, if they don't know how to check themselves and control themselves, they can definitely run a lot of good people away. Same thing like an avoidant. Again, because you could have a person that deeply love you and an avoidant just, they don't want to connect. They fear connection. So an avoidant just won't call you. And you be like, yo, can you just keep calling me? And an avoidant just won't call you until you get to the point where you just stop dealing with an avoidant. And then once you completely stop dealing with an avoidant, they be 2 weeks later, 6 months later, they knocking down your door like, hey, can you? And you passed them. So both, unless you got a secure attachment style, you need to be worried, or not worried, but you need to be mindful, because your attachment style could ruin great relationships that you have in different ways, but they both can wreak havoc in your life. So be mindful of the jealousy and the possessiveness, because again, you'll start having your partner not go out, not talk to certain people, not participate in certain things, not try certain things, not speak to certain people, because you just worried that everything means that this person's going to leave you. Everything means that this person's going to abandon you. Everything means that you are not good enough. And that's what you got to be mindful of. Difficulty being alone. Difficulty being alone. So if you are always needing to be around people, always needing to be around your friends, always needing to be out and about in the mix. When you are at home, you always need to be watching something, listening to something. You can never sit still alone in your own thoughts, in your own company. That's could be a sign that you actually have an anxious attachment style. Not being comfortable in your own skin, not being able to be alone, not being able to be single for a period of time, feeling like you always need to be in some type of intimate connection, intimate reaction. So again, you can spot an anxious person because they are never single. And if they are single, it's never for long. So they're going to be with this person, that didn't work out, entertain this person, that didn't work out, entertain this person, that didn't work out. But again, it's never really stemming from a place of love. It's an anxious person. It's never really stemming from a place of, this is who I really desire. It's more so just like, I believe that this is all I can get. So even if you have a person that has an anxious attachment style, you should definitely want them to seek help because, again, they can start feeling like, you know, a lot of times people who have anxious attachment style aren't who really they're with because they have low confidence. And they say that what attracts you when you're broken will disgust you when you're healed. So once you do the root cause and then you ain't got that fear of abandonment no more and you ain't got that fear of rejection, would you still want the partner that you actually with? That's why you actually should do the work, you know what I'm saying, prior to it. Now, if you're already in a relationship, then still do the work and everything. But if you are single, do the work because what you attract when you're broken will disgust you when you heal. What up, Mel? An emotional roller coaster. An emotional roller coaster. Constant highs and lows. Where it's just like the person seems to just be super, super confident and in love. And then they just super just like frantic and emotional and all that. But it's all just about what they perceive to be going on in the relationship. Because they got that fear of abandonment and the fear of rejection. They interpret all of your actions as if you're leaving the relationship. And it causes these unnecessary conflicts and these unnecessary arguments. Which, like the brother in the comments said, it'll eventually push a person away. Because you just like, yo, like I promised, like I said that I was at the gym. That's why I didn't answer the phone. Or I was asleep. That's why I didn't answer the phone. And if you're a person that you really, really ain't doing nothing and this person's constantly on your head about something that they're perceiving in their mind, that could be an issue. That's why we got to heal because most of us, we're not really dating the person that we're with. We're just dating, they call it the object of displacement, where you're not really, again, interacting with that person. That person just triggered something from a past experience with a person that you're not even dealing with anymore. And you're taking that out on the person that's in front of you. And that's why you actually want to be mindful of it. Because making the person in your present pay for the mistakes of the person in the past will equal a future with nobody. But this is how a lot of us do. We have these wounds from other relationships because many of us have not healed. And then when a person that we're dealing with now does something that even resembles it, we fully project onto them as if they were the person that caused us the pain in the past. And this is how an anxious attachment style can really ruin a lot of dope relationships. And this is how they cause that emotional roller coaster. Because they constantly perceive conflicts where they are not. And it's all based upon their unresolved wounds of the past. But any little thing that you do, they'll always interpret your behavior as, again, a sign that you're rejecting them or a sign that you're abandoning them. That's why you actually want to do. Because we don't see with our eyes. We see through our eyes. But the eyes can only see what your mind can comprehend. And your mind can only comprehend what your emotional wounds will allow you to see. So if your emotional wounds is telling you that something isn't possible, or all people are a certain type of way, or all men are a certain type of way, or all women are a certain type of way, or all people are a certain type of way, then that is all you will be able to see. More importantly, something could be right in front of you that you deeply deserve and you deeply desire. But because you got this belief that it is not possible or that all people are a certain way, you literally won't see what's right in front of you. You will completely discount it because you don't see with your eyes, you see through them. How many times have y'all had a situation where somebody asked you to go to the counter and grab something and you looking and you like, I don't see it. And they like, yo, it's right next to whatever. And you like, yo, I'm looking right next to whatever and I don't see it. And then they come right up and grab it right in your face. And you're like, I swear to God, I was looking there, bro, and I didn't see it. Because again, we don't see with our eyes. We see through them. So you got to be mindful of your emotional wounds because that can cause you to project problems that don't exist onto your current relationship based upon people who did you dirty in the past, from past relationships that's not even in your life anymore. But the wounds are still real. That's why you got to do so much subconscious work. Because excitation transfer, your brain can't tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and an actual experience. So if something triggers you that brings up an old wound, you will subconsciously start acting out as if that old wound is happening to you. This is why, have you ever like completely overreacted on somebody and somebody says something to you and then afterwards you like, I don't know why I just spazzed out on that person like that. And then you might not even like have apologized, but silently to yourself, you was just like, yo, what the hell? Where did that come from? I don't know why I just went in on that person. Because they were an object of displacement. They just triggered something in you that somebody else did a long time ago in the past. And then they just actually had to deal with it. And so you know you got this in you when you say phrases like, I'll never let another person do me like that. I'll never let a person treat me like. Anytime you're talking like that, you're making the person in your present pay for the mistakes of the person in the past that's not even here anymore. You're not even dealing with. You know what I'm saying? Your first boyfriend told you something, or your first girlfriend did you this, and now you holding all future girls accountable and all future guys accountable for something 5 boyfriends did ago, or 6 boyfriends did ago, or somebody 25 years ago did to you. But you're still carrying it around in your nervous system as if it's happening today. And you're constantly projecting that onto every person you're in a relationship with. And that can cause emotional roller coasters. So if you are constantly having these emotional roller coasters, now again, we're not talking about a person really doing something to you. I'm not talking about a person really betraying your trust, really treating you, being disrespectful, any of these things. I'm talking about you are taking things like simply a person didn't answer the phone. And from there, you're projecting and filling in with a whole different story of why this person didn't answer the phone. You didn't answer the phone because you're cheating or da-da-da-da. Or it could be just anything. Y'all, you're supposed to meet for lunch or whatever. He got caught up at work a little bit and he showed up 5 minutes late, and you immediately just start projecting, oh, you don't care about me. You don't, you don't. And he just like, yo, I got caught up at work. I pop, and it'll cause you to again take out all that frustration that you really want to give to the person that caused the pain, but you're not even dealing with that person anymore. And now you're directing unconsciously, and most time unintentionally, you're directing all that to a person that didn't do nothing to you. They didn't cause that, but for some reason they just got to be the one to bear all that. That's why Drake said in that song, I'm dealing with a heart that I didn't break. And most of us are dealing with hearts that we didn't break, especially if you're an adult. That's why I believe the Bible told us to kind of love the wife of our youth, because the older we get, the more challenging it can be, especially when a person got all these different heartbreaks, the older that they are. So emotional roller coaster. The next one, fear of conflict. Fear of conflict is a key sign that you have an anxious attachment style. Because remember, the anxious attachment style is fear rejection, fear abandonment. So they don't want conflict because they feel conflict could possibly lead to being rejected and being abandoned. So they don't even want no chance of that. So they'll just, that's why a lot of times an anxious person, an anxious attachment style won't really be authentic. They don't feel comfortable being authentic because they are fearful of being rejected and they fearful people will abandon them, which again shows the lack of self-worth because they don't really feel good about themselves. They don't really believe that they are valuable. They don't really believe that they are likable. So it causes them to not want to ruffle any feathers and potentially have somebody leave them and potentially have somebody reject them. So literally, they'll just stay silent about certain things. It could be something that's really agitating this person's soul, something that's really killing them. And a lot of times they will just stay silent about it because they don't want to ruffle feathers. This is, again, why they stay in messed up relationships, too. They don't want to confront the challenge. They don't want to confront the difficulty. So they'll just stay in a messed up relationship. You need to meet someone who matches your energy. Facts. Or at least who understands it. Even if they don't match your energy, they at least understand your energy. And if they understand it, then they know what to do to kind of actually deal with it. A topic we always, or a theme we always say on this channel is respect my nervous system. So even if they don't match your energy, they match the fact that they're going to respect your nervous system. Because your nervous system and their nervous system is different. So it's not like y'all can apply the same rules because you might get triggered when a person elevates their voice. Another person might get triggered based on your nonverbals in communicating. So if you're constantly just talking to this person like, well, I didn't raise my voice, so it's all good. Well, it's just like, well, that's only your space. So it's like neither one of y'all raised your voice. So that person's respecting your nervous system, but you got to respect this person's nervous system and watch your nonverbals. So yes, get somebody that match your energy, but more importantly, get somebody that respects your nervous system. That's the most important thing. And so, yes, if you're always avoiding difficult conversations or disagreements, you don't want to have any type of conversation that could lead to some type of disagreement because you fear that this person's not going to like you. This person's going to want to abandon you. Cause you to suppress a lot of your emotions. So you keep stuff in you, which can be dangerous because that can lead to a lot of explosive arguments or just explosive conflicts. So instead of being able to constantly have healthy conflicts, you know, we always say kill the monster when it's small. Don't wait for it's like the size of Godzilla and it's destroying all of downtown. Instead of killing it when it's small, if you're suppressing your emotions, then that's waiting until it becomes Godzilla. And then you typically have a catastrophe, a huge blow up where you typically feel ashamed after blowing up like that. You typically feel guilty after blowing up like that. But it's the stuffing. I don't care how much you stuff. There's only a certain amount of stuff that can fit inside this vessel before it either breaks or before it pops. And so that is what the fear of conflict will actually do. It can cause you to break. It can cause you to pop. So you want to be mindful of that. And then the last one that I have here is overcompensating in relationships. Lord have mercy. Overcompensating in a relationship. Because again, you don't feel good about yourself. The avoidant or the anxious attachment style tends to have a lot of low self-worth. So when you don't feel good about yourself, that makes you want to overcompensate in all these other areas. So let me spend a whole bunch of money. Let me try to do a whole bunch of nice things. Let me try to be super charming. Let me try to just overcompensate because I don't want them to see the real me. I don't want to be exposed because if I am exposed, that can lead to, remember, the main two things, that fear of rejection and that fear of abandonment. And so they're constantly trying to overcompensate as a way of making themselves feel good, of making themselves feel valuable, of making themselves feel like I'm somebody that you wouldn't want to leave. They're constantly trying to use this as a way to ingratiate into you, which is trying to flatter you or win favor with you. And so that's a sign of having an anxious attachment style, is where you really don't just feel good enough by yourself. So you just constantly have to overcompensate with all these superficial things. So the signs of anxious attachment style is the fear of abandonment, where you got this fear that people will either leave you or reject you. Where then the second one is the constant craving reassurance, where you always need people to tell you that it's okay, you're important, I love you, I care for you. You're constantly needing that. Third one, you're always overthinking and you're anxious about the relationship. Your partner does something and now you're not present at all anymore. You can't focus at all anymore. Now you're just all up in your head, just running over the situations and the scenarios over and over again. Clinginess and dependency, where you feel like you just always need to be around your partner. And when the partner don't answer the phone, or when they can't make plans with you, or they can't be around you, then you just feel down and sad and can't that's a sign that you have an anxious attachment style. Jealousy and possessiveness. So because you don't feel good about yourself and you don't feel likable, you always think people are going to reject you or abandon you. It causes you to be hyper vigilant and always on the lookout for your partner to leave you. It causes you to always interpret interactions between your partner and the opposite sex, or 2024, the same sex. You never know. You know, the alphabet people. But it causes you to interpret that as like, oh, that's a threat. Oh, yeah, they're going to abandon me. Oh, he's going to leave me. Oh, he's rejecting me because he's giving that person attention. She's giving that person attention. That's a clear sign. And being possessive. So now you don't want your partner to go out. Now you don't want your partner attending certain events and all that because you are feeling insecure and you're feeling like that person is going to leave you. Difficulty being alone. When you can't really be by yourself, that's a clear sign that you have an anxious attachment style. When you always need to be in from relationship, or situationship to situationship, you don't really spend time single or by yourself. That's a clear sign. All you're doing is destroying yourself emotionally because the other person is using you for their personal gain. Exactly. And sharks out here will do that. They will see, oh, this person's emotionally vulnerable and they're kind of trying to overcompensate to make themselves feel valuable and all that. Yeah, let me take till they ain't got nothing else to give, and then I'll discard them. So, got to be mindful of that. Emotional roller coasters, where because they have this unresolved trauma that's causing them to feel like everybody will abandon them or everybody will reject them, what they'll do is they will perceive all of your actions as if you are rejecting them or you are abandoning them. And therefore, it's causing all these conflicts. And again, it's made up conflicts because they don't have actual facts to prove that you are doing things. It's more so hunches. It's more so assumptions that they are making. It's not direct facts. They see something and then they infer from that. But with that inference is a whole bunch of assumptions with that they never check out. They just assume and then just go into the argument as if that's true. And that causes this emotional roller coaster experience dating them, because y'all could be in a good spot and then they see something that makes them feel insecure, that triggers their feeling like, oh, I'm going to be rejected or abandoned. And next thing you know, they're coming at you about something. You're like, what the? That ain't. Now, again, they're not coming at you in a conflicting way, but it still can be emotionally draining when they're always mentioning something like that you're about to leave them, or that you don't want them anymore, that you don't care about them, or that you don't like them anymore. Get out of the storm. You're better than that. Facts. Then the fear of conflict. Again, because they have low self-worth and they fear that people will reject them and people will abandon them. They don't want to have conflict because in their minds, that's going to cause people to leave them. Nah, because if I get this person mad, they don't want to be around me. If I trigger this person, they won't want to be around me. So I'm just going to save face. I'm just going to always bend to everybody else's will because I don't want to make them feel some type of way, because that could result in them rejecting me or abandoning me. So I'm just going to avoid difficult conversations. I'm going to suppress my emotions and how I feel, because you don't want to deal with that particular conflict. So you got to be mindful of that. And then overcompensating in a relationship because they don't feel valuable just how they are. So they got to spend a whole bunch of money, or they got to just try to do a whole bunch of nice things for you, or they got to try to just love bomb you, or they got to try to just overflow with like words of affirmation, or all of these different things to kind of overcompensate for the simple fact that they don't feel good and that they really feel that you will abandon them. That's why they put on this facade and try to go all above and beyond to try to really wow you so you don't leave them. Who that black girl behind you, bro? That black girl behind me? What the fuck are you talking about? What up, Brawley? I've been looking for the sun and the rain, but yeah, I gotta leave the storm for sure. Facts. So y'all, let me know if y'all got value from this particular live. We were talking about the signs of an anxious attachment style. And if you missed yesterday's live where I did the avoidant attachment style, that's still on my page. So you can go on my page and look at that particular live. That was a very interesting live as well too. Trust me, it took me a long time until they finally exposed themselves. Don't wait that long. Facts. That's what I've been wanting to see the real her, but you know they won't do it when you got something to still give. Facts. That's why you don't judge a person off their words. You judge a person off the fruit that it bears. And anytime you recognize that their words and actions don't align, don't allow a conversation to manipulate out of what your nervous system and what your body is telling you. Now, distinguish between a trauma response versus your true intuition. But once your true intuition kicks in, where you're just like, she says she's not this type of person, but I'm noticing she's doing this. I'm noticing her behavior doesn't align with what she says. Don't trust the words. Trust your actions. True colors don't come out until emotions do. She starts mad, weird into the camera. Who is... I don't know who this raw person is. Cut that loose. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Trust me. Facts. Is it possible for someone to be both anxious and avoidant? Yes, it's very possible. And that's some people. It's not a lot of people, but yes, you can have a blend of anxious attachment, which can be very tricky. For one, for the person who has it, and definitely for dating you. Because it's like you're fearing what you're craving. So it's like on one instance, you could constantly want to be around a person. Then on the other instance, once your emotional threshold gets too high, then you just need space away from people. So I was an anxious avoidant for a while too. To some degree, it still kind of comes out a little bit, and I gotta recognize it in myself, like especially having a kid, when a kid just want to be in your skin, and then like my new relationship that I'm in, she likes to be in my skin, so I'm not really used to like people being that close to me and intimate on me and all that. So it's like sometimes I could find myself like a little overwhelmed and wanting, and that's the avoidant kicking in me, where you get overwhelmed by the emotional needs of other people. That's definitely an avoidant attachment style. So yes, you can be both, where it's like you deeply crave love, affection, and all that connection, but then also there's a part of you that kind of fears it as well too. This was a good live. Thank you. I appreciate it. Good question. Just got in here, but I feel this. My dude right here helped me see the light. It took some time, but I saw the light. Thank you, my friend Tara, to hop on the camera family. She's right. Thank you. Facts. I'm sitting here thinking I have both. I think it's very possible to have both. You're speaking real shit, bro, but she's distracting me. This person, I might have to just put you out because you being disruptive. And we'll just go ahead and just remove you. My situation is I am trapped. She don't show me love, but she doesn't let me be happy, but she doesn't let me go. Well, I mean, it's a personal choice. So, I mean, you know, you're consenting on some level by staying in the relationship. When you say she doesn't let you go, you don't let go either. I'm sitting here thinking I have both. It's possible to have both. You should definitely schedule that free consultation call, man, so we can kind of discuss it a little bit more. That's because she's needing you financially. Psh, bingo! Financially or emotionally. A lot of people are emotional vampires out here. You know what I'm saying? So even if they don't need you financially, they need you emotionally to make them feel good about themselves, to be somebody that they can just vomit on, to be somebody that sometimes just be a punching bag. It's all different types of things. You know what I'm saying? I would have to know way more information on that particular situation to give an accurate assessment. Because in my experience, there are so many reasons why people do the crazy things that they do. Does anybody got any question about anxious attachment style or anything? Let me know if anybody got any questions. But I'm going to save this live as well, too. I'm glad I jumped on. I was going to talk myself out of it. But I'm like, got to commit. Got to keep showing up. As we talk about them anxious attachment styles. Can you overcome it? Definitely. You can overcome it. You can shift to a different attachment style. But the key is that you have to have an environment where you're not constantly triggered. You got to have an environment where you're not re-traumatized or re-abused. So if you're an anxious attachment style, it's better for you to date somebody that's a secure attachment style. But a lot of times, anxious people tend to attract avoidance. So it's just like dating an avoidant will keep you anxious. And a lot of times can cause you to shift a little bit to anxious avoidant. So you can shift and overcome it, but you got to have a safe environment where a person is respecting your nervous system. So again, the reason why you need reassurance if you're an anxious attachment style is because you fear rejection and you fear abandonment. So if you're dating somebody that kind of puts those fears aside for you and really make you feel like you're not going to get rejected, really makes you feel like you're supported and you're not going to be abandoned, that it's a safe space to be your authentic self, and consistently over a period of time, you will start shifting into more of a secure attachment style. But if you're constantly with somebody that's aggravating and disrupting your nervous system, you won't be able to overcome it. So a key aspect is having somebody that respects your nervous system. But it doesn't pay a man to respect him. It doesn't pay to respect a man that doesn't respect himself. So before we demand somebody else respect our nervous system, you got to be respecting your nervous system. Talk about that, yo. Why do anxious love avoidant? I'm not necessarily sure why anxious loves avoidant. I can imagine, I know why anxious or avoidant loves an anxious. You know what I'm saying? Because anxious is really going to cater to an avoidant. An avoidant typically will be dominating the relationship or leading the relationship or having all of their needs met, while the avoidant is just completely cool with damn near not having its needs met. It's not cool with it, but it will accept it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why an avoidant damn near will get to an anxious person, because if you are dating an anxious person and they are locked in with you, you can literally tell them, hey, I don't want you doing this, and they won't do it. Hey, I need you to start doing this, and they will start doing it. If you really have an anxious, if you're really dating an anxious, now that's not about to work if you got an avoidant. Like, it's not about to work at all. A lot of times, the anxious people, what they are attracted in the avoidance is their ability to be by themselves. They desire what they feel they are missing. Because an anxious person can't be by themselves. They do not, that just regulates their nervous system. They don't feel good at all when they by themselves. And so I would think that's something that they attracted They see in the avoidant that is attractive to them, where they're just like, man, I wish that I could just not care what people think. I wish that I could just cut people off. I wish that I could. So they see some of the attributes of a avoidant almost like as a strength, because it takes a lot for an anxious person to cut somebody off. I mean, you got to really abuse a damn anxious person for them to cut you off. An avoidant, you just got to make them feel some type of way, and they cool not talking to you no more. So I just think that they see qualities in each other that they damn near admire. And that's what kind of brings them together. But a secure person, this is why a secure person can date either one and help them become secure. Because a secure person isn't going to feel some type of way when the avoidant needs distance, when the avoidant needs space. The secure person ain't going to be like, oh, that means you don't love me anymore. You don't care. It's a person that's literally secure within themselves will be like, okay, babe, take your space. You know what I'm saying? Just call me when you need. And as long as you ain't taking a week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever, they cool with you not calling them for a week, because they don't think that you doing something behind they back. They ain't got all these fears and worries. And they're completely secure within themselves. If you do something bogus to them, they completely cool with just walking away from the situation. So just being a little bit mindful of that. Take care, my dude, speaking the truth. Can some anxious people be by themselves? Because I believe that some of them can, but still be anxious about their relationships. Not really. Like, they can be anxious, but they're going to be talking to somebody. It doesn't mean that they're in a relationship. It just means that they're constantly craving intimacy. So they're going to have a connection. They're good. They may be single, but they're talking to people. They are entertaining somebody. Somebody is getting their time and attention. They are messaging somebody. That's for sure about an anxious person. An anxious person isn't just sitting by themselves for long periods of time. I'm okay when they need some time to themselves, but then I start to get anxious when it seems to be a constant thing. But you got to understand that how you need connection is how really they need space. So the same way when your person isn't reaching out to you and always talking to you, and how that makes you feel dysregulated, they feel the same dysregulation when a person is constantly reaching out to them and constantly talking. So it's like, you got to have understanding and give this person empathy. And you got to treat this person how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated. So to you, you'll be like, yeah, but if I didn't talk to a person for 3 days, it's because I'm not liking them no more. So that's what you think that they're doing. But in actuality, you got to remember the nervous system is different for an anxious and an avoidant. So what they're doing is trying to let their emotional threshold come back so they can be more emotionally connected to you. But if you keep pressing when they need space away, you're going to run them away and they'll never want to talk to you again. But it's the exact same opposite. It's the opposite for an anxious person. So when you're an avoidant and you're dating an anxious person, you just need to be able to just give that person reassurance. Hey, babe, I know, you know what I'm saying, I haven't really been answering the phone like that, but I promise you I love you. I just been dealing with some things. I just need a little bit of time to myself, but I promise we locked in. Our relationship is good. I love you. I'm not going nowhere. I promise you we fine. And an anxious person to be good. They not going to be thinking about it all day, all preoccupied in their mind. They are going to be Gucci. But the issue is that it's hard for an anxious to give what an avoidant needs, and it's hard for an avoidant to give what an anxious needs. The avoidant don't really have the emotional intelligence to give reassurance when a person needs it, unfortunately. And the anxious person ain't really got the self-control to not reach out to a person, to give this person space like the avoidant needs. So again, this is how they end up like traumatizing each other a little bit more and end up causing more harm than good. That's why I tell a person, you can date. If you're anxious, you can date an avoidant. If you're an avoidant, you can date an anxious. But it just takes a lot of self-awareness on both parts. It can't just have one part. One person is the only one that's aware and acquiescing to the other person. It got to be both people. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out and you're going to be traumatizing yourself. For some reason, I only got 39 seconds left on this live. Sometimes they be letting me go 2-3 hours, and then other times they limit me to an hour. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, hope y'all find this valuable. Can you become all attachment styles? You can become secure. You can't become secure and anxious or secure and avoidant. You can be avoidant and anxious together. But you can work to be secure. But again, you got to have a space where your nervous system isn't triggered. Y'all, if this resonated with you, click the link in the bio to schedule a free healing discovery call so we can kind of talk about your attachment styles. See what your attachment style is and give you a strategy on how to come from anxious or avoidant to secure. Peace.